What's going on, everybody? The NBA season finally kicked off last night. Two excellent games between four of the best teams in the NBA. Bucks versus Nets and Warriors versus Lakers went down, and I just want to give my thoughts on this opening night in the league, which, in the grand scheme of things, probably won't have a long-lasting major impact on the outcome of this season. But just since it was the opening night, I just wanted to cover what went down. So in the first game, the Bucks, the defending champions, against the team they knocked out in a thrilling second round series, the Brooklyn Nets. It came down to Durant. His foot wasn't on the line, so they lost the game later in overtime. And the Nets, they beat them again. 127-104 was the final. And even though this Nets team got a lot better in the offseason, in my opinion, although they did lose Kyrie Irving, of course, with his whole refusal to get the vaccine. But even though the Nets did get deeper in the offseason, I still believed no one on their team could stop Giannis Antetokounmpo inside the paint. And, I was proven right, and I'm not the only person to say that, but pretty much everyone was proven right. Nobody on the Nets could stop Giannis from getting in the paint. He scored 32 points. He's even shooting some jumpers at times. He looked fantastic. And, he went right head to head with Durant, who also had 30. A lot of the talk in the offseason was who's the real best player in the NBA now? Giannis or Durant. Giannis won the championship, but Durant, he is the most gifted scorer. He can score it from any point on the court, no matter where he's at. One of the most gifted scorers of all time. So, Giannis won the first match of the season. We'll have to see how that shakes out. Chris Middleton also looked really good, scoring 20. Harden looked great for the Nets as the number two options for each team. Although Harden, obviously, is more of an option than Middleton. But overall, the stars for each team looked really good. Now, for the Nets, the way they improve, in my opinion, and get to the level to stop the Bucks, well, it's going to be hard for them to find someone to cover Giannis. They're going to have to look at the trade deadline maybe to pick up a real post defender. But as for the rest of the team, I think they're really deep. I just didn't totally love who they played over who last night in terms of the matchups because you had Patrick Mills, who was fantastic. I'm not he's probably the only bench player I understood their use of him. He played a ton of minutes with Kyrie not in the lineup. Scored 21 points, I believe. He's definitely a six-man of the year contender for sure. But as for the rest of the bench, with Claxton now becoming the starting center, a move I really like. The size off the bench for them is really lackluster. Aldridge, of course, future Hall of Famer. He's a great player, but there's plenty of great things people were saying about him when we thought he was retiring due to that heart condition. But the matter of fact is he's back, and last year he was already slipping across the board. The last few years he's been bad defensively. He's only going to get worse. And as the backup center for this team, a backup big, I don't really love the fit. And as for James Johnson, the former Heat forward, Timberwolves forward, he was also very unproductive. Despite playing 21 minutes in the contest, I guess he was taking more of that center role, defensively, because Aldridge can't really fill it. But honestly, I didn't really like what I saw from him either. And then as for Paul Millsap and Bruce Brown, who I actually thought were going to be the two key guys on this bench, they barely played. And I'm not going to act like I'm Steve Nash. I know what's going on in practice every day. But from Millsap's point of view, he's always been a great defensive wing. I thought the addition of him, who he was still productive with Denver last year, I thought he would really bring that versatility to the Nets bench. He only played 5 minutes. And Bruce Brown, who was basically a 6'4" center last year, he was phenomenal off the bench for Brooklyn. One of the most versatile players in the league last year. And he's really what made their bench unit tick. And he played 4 minutes, and it was at the end of the game because they were getting blown out. Cameron Thomas, the rookie out of LSU, also only 4 minutes. I won't criticize that as much because he is a rookie, but a lot of people thought he would bring a real scoring punch to that Nets bench. He didn't get to play a lot either. And Javon Carter did play a ton. He played 19 minutes. I was not expecting him to be a major part of this Nets rotation at all, but clearly Steve Nash likes what he saw from him. We'll see if Carter can prove that he's really the right guard to be part of this Nets rotation over guys like Brown and Thomas. I'm unconvinced, but we'll see how the season shakes out for the Nets. And as for the Bucks, we already knew about their depth. They've only gotten better, adding guys like Grayson Allen and George Hill to a team that was already really deep and productive last season. And once Dante DiVincenzo gets back, that will be an even deeper guard rotation for the Bucks. So I really like what I saw from them, defending champions. Not much you could say. Giannis is amazing. So I actually predicted them to get that win last night because of the fact that the Nets didn't have anyone to guard Giannis. So I was pretty content with the Bucks' performance. Now, a result I was not expecting, but I was pleasantly surprised by, was the Warriors taking down the Lakers in the opener, 121-114, and it came despite Curry not being able to knock too many shots down. He did have a triple-double, which just shows how much of an impact he can have even when he isn't draining threes left and right. But the rest of the Warriors team, I was just touching on the Nets' depth, but they lost the game. The Warriors' depth looks phenomenal. With Jordan Poole stepping into that starting lineup, he'll be the sixth man on this team once Clay comes back. A lot of good stories for him coming out of this offseason stating how much of a scoring threat he can be for this team. You had guys like Iguodala coming back to Golden State, actually at 12 points, playing a lot more minutes than I was expecting him. He didn't look too great on Miami last year, but he looks like he's happy to be back home in Golden State. He played well. Nemanja Bjelica, the long time not necessarily a journeyman, but he's been on a few teams, never really found that one fit on a contender. The Heat traded for him last year, but they were promptly swept out of the playoffs by the Bucks, so Bjelica didn't really get to prove himself on a big stage, but I think this could be the year for him. He had 15 points, 11 rebounds off the bench. He's always been a productive player. The potential future Sixer that was never to be by Bjelica, but he looked good. And Otto Porter, working his way back from injuries the last few years, he only played, I think, 15 minutes, but he looks solid as well. And as the season goes along, he might be able to step into that role as a real reliable backup forward. And at the center position, James Wiseman was hurt. He's been hurt the last few weeks, so he didn't get to play. I think that will be a much needed asset for Golden State if they're going to guard Davis, because Draymond's going to have to guard LeBron. So be able to stop Davis in the paint, which they couldn't do last night. He had 33 points, 11 rebounds, which he should have, because Golden State, as much as I like Looney, he can't stop Davis. But if Wiseman's able to develop this year, and they love Wiseman over there, they've been singing his praises all offseason, how much he's worked to get better despite the injury. So if he can come back and play a real role, that would be really important for this Golden State team with their size. And as for the Lakers, the Westbrook-LeBron fit, it was talked about all offseason. Can they play together? Can they handle the ball together? Well, LeBron did most of the duties last night. When it comes to running the offense, Westbrook, it's not that he was playing off ball. He certainly had his moments, but he missed a lot of shots. One of those classic sloppy Westbrook games where the wheels just come off for him. And I'm not necessarily a Westbrook hater. I'm just more of a realist. The Westbrook just doesn't, even though he has terrific performances, he has the triple-doubles, he hasn't been a consistent winner in years. And, looking at the Lakers team, Westbrook is going to need to figure out his role if they're going to gel. Now, I will say, I like the Lakers' depth at guard a lot, and they were missing a lot of important players, in my opinion, last night. THT's out with the COVID issue. He's probably going to be that starting shooting guard. When I first saw Bazemore starting, I was really jarred, but then I realized Nunn was out with an injury. Ellington, although I don't love Ellington on this team, Bazemore to me is better than Ellington at this point. He's also on the team, can provide some shooting. And of course THT, as I mentioned, was out with the injury as well. Malik Monk coming off the bench. I was expecting him to play more. This team does need shooting, so I was surprised that Monk didn't get some more minutes, but it is what it is. This Lakers team certainly has the talent to compete in the Western Conference, but overall, so far the fit with this specific group has been a bit sloppy through the first game. We'll have to see how this group grows as the season continues. And Carmelo he came off the bench, which I was expecting him to start. He did not, but he did still play a lot of minutes. He looked okay, but as we know, his defense is as bad as ever. So guys like Ariza was the other one who was out. Guys like Ariza, Bazemore are going to really need to step up off the bench as these wing defenders. I'm not necessarily sure at their ages that they're still capable of doing that, unfortunately. But overall, it was a really nice opening night of NBA basketball. I'm just excited to see the Sixers play tonight, and it's going to be a great season. So thank you guys for watching, and make sure to subscribe to the channel.